Alice Hudson. I really enjoyed this week's chapters. The managerial culture felt much more familiar and comfortable to me than the collegial. I've never attended a community college or Catholic college, but I definitely understand and appreciate their missions. I went to a Catholic high school that had a junior college on the same campus. As I think about it now, I didn't know anyone who attended a junior college, and I never really knew much about it. But the nuns taught at both schools, so I have no doubt they were very similar in structure. I guess that's why community colleges and Catholic colleges feel more familiar to me, because they're run very much like K-12 institutions, with a clear hierarchy, clear objectives, and a teaching focus. Their mission is also close to my heart, with the goal of providing local opportunities to underserved groups. There were a few things from the managerial culture that stood out for me. These are sort of random, but first was that the Catholic colleges gave women, probably mostly nuns, an opportunity to lead, which I think is wonderful. Second, the idea that Catholic and community colleges were considered lesser because of the populations they serve. I work in a K-5 school that has the same unfair and unwarranted label of being lesser. I'm not sure, because of the population that we serve. I'm not sure how you combat this, but it's definitely a narrow view of the world that labels people and institutions in this way. Another point was that people pick a Catholic or community college based on proximity rather than prestige, so there's no focus on generating prestige. And they are more easily adaptable and able to respond to local needs as they arise. Also, they are focused on undergraduate education, so they weren't influenced by the German model, and there isn't a tug of war between teaching and research. Teaching is their focus. And finally, that the complexity of running a large university has brought the managerial culture to many universities, as the lack of funds and the increase in part-time faculty require leaders who know how to manage money and people. All I can think is that this must really sting some of the universities that have had to adopt what seems to be viewed as a lesser culture. I felt comfortable with the quote from page 55, which said, "The community college as an institution is one of the most important innovations in the history of higher education." Whose educational space was my favorite chapter so far? I enjoyed thinking about where education takes place and who claims that space. Rhodes makes a case for technology creating a space separate from the classroom. It's not addressed in our readings, but there's an ed tech debate which began in the 1990s. It's Clark versus Kuzma, if you want to read about it. But it's about the role of technology in education. Clark's argument is that technology is merely a vehicle to deliver instruction. It doesn't change what is taught, just how the information reaches the learner. There's a tremendous amount of research in which no significant difference is found between the same instruction delivered face-to-face and via technology, which supports this stance. Kuzma, however, says technology influences learning. The majority of research I've read tells me Clark is right, but I feel like the more technology advances, the more likely it is or will be that Kuzma's point is valid. Either way, I think a case can be made that whether or not technology influences learning, it is a learning space. According to Rhodes, there's a rise in spaces such as those created by technology in which professors are not central. He says these spaces are created, supported, and managed by professional personnel other than faculty. But if you side with Clark, then I do not think it follows that technology enables learning without faculty. In terms of the physical classroom space and combining all of these thoughts with those from the chapter on the collegial culture, if tenure-track professors don't teach or don't want to teach, then should they have a claim to teaching? And if they don't, who does? It seems likely that it's the managers who hire non-tenure-track staff to teach. It's thought-provoking that because, as Berkowitz and Pollock say, universities have been forced to adopt a managerial culture, there are often more managers than professors on university campuses. Rhodes' chapter, Whose Educational Space, points to a decline in the relevance of tenure-track faculty related to teaching, as faculty move toward research and away from the classroom and other spaces in which student learning happens. And finally, the knowledge politics problem. I worry that the changes in organizational structures that Gross discusses in healthcare and law are also on the horizon for K-12 education. In the last few years, there's been a lot of discussion in North Carolina about a model in which there's one certified teacher per grade level who plans for and monitors non-certified instructional assistants who do the actual work with children. As a teacher, this scares me, but I'm sure it scared doctors when the idea arose that they could have multiple PAs who saw patients under their supervision, and that's definitely become a reality. So the idea that the structure of education could change radically seems a realistic possibility. Gross lists a number of factors that are leading to changes in higher ed, including the rise in for-profit institutions, the growth in non-tenure track faculty, corporate influences, more powerful university administrators, and consumerist ethic among students and criticism of liberal professors. In response to this, Gross explores the views of 57 American professors regarding their views on academic freedom and the relationship between their personal politics and their research and teaching. He presents a lot of findings, but my overall takeaway is that the stereotype of the vocal liberal professor trying to indoctrinate students is more myth than reality, and most professors view academic freedom and sharing their political views within professional bounds. Thank you for listening, and here are my references.